morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2. Did everybody drink all mandatory 10 tickets worth of drinks last night? And if not, don't worry, because we will make up for any deficiencies personally. Later tonight, anyway. So hopefully most of you are reasonably well rested, or at least more well rested than I am. And we'll try not to talk too loud to disturb your fragile cranial state. The dinner last night and getting a chance, I think, for everybody to speak with each other, I thought was really productive, not just because the drinks were free, which helps, and the food was free, which also helps, and the drinks were free, which helps. But you know, it was really nice getting kind of all of us together in sort of a more informal situation, because I think once you get a few drinks in people, they'll talk about anything. And you know, I think this is a smart bunch of people, so it helps to have a social lubricant be applied. So today is going to be a slightly shorter day than yesterday, which if you're like me and went to bed at 4:30 in the morning is probably a good thing. But we still have a lot of good stuff. So there's going to be 2 talks in the morning and then a couple of more open space sessions, and hopefully those will go more quickly now that everyone is used to the format. So first up today is Alessandro, and he is going to be giving a talk on something that hopefully will be of great interest to the entire audience, especially given now the new developments around Puppet Forge and module development. And I expect after Alessandro's talk, I want to see everybody on their laptop coding and publishing something, hopefully relevant. All right, Alessandro.
Good morning. Before beginning, I would like to take this occasion to have a personal survey on Puppet use. How many of you do use Puppet on Red Hat systems? CentOS systems? Debian? Powerful Debian? Ubuntu? SUSE? Solaris? HP Unix? IX? Unix? 8? Whatever. IBM stuff? Do you use FreeBSD? OpenBSD? macOS? Okay. Windows? Windows? Cisco routers? That's interesting. Many platforms to support, and that's the point. And another thing, how many of you do use Puppet version .24? Okay, 25? 26? Well, it was just to understand what kind of Puppet usage is around, because I think it's important to know for people making modules who actually uses modules and on what technology. So, this talk is about Puppet modules and how they can be made operable and interoperable between different collections of modules, and something about standards. The process of building some kind of Puppet reusable code has been somehow long and maybe a bit painful. The evolution of this process started from I have to get used to Jeff remote control recipes. At the beginning there was just kind of recipes, let's say fragments of Puppet code and files together. They generally didn't have any structure. There was not the concept of module. There was for sure useful to learn the Puppet language. And generally also they were made for specific and custom operations. And so maybe they were done just for the operating system of the person using it. And I would dare to say also they were of limited use. There are some kind of exceptions. This is a layout SSH out is, I think, one of the recipes that is most used around, because it just does that little thing, it does it well. So that's the point. Oh shit. Later, I don't know exactly when, it was introduced the concept of modus. That was a big step ahead, because there was a structure, and upon that structure you could deploy files and have some kind of standards, also a convention based on paths and so on. They were intended to be used reusable. I mean, you have your module, you can use that module since it's somewhere else. They were also intended to be cross-operating systems somehow. So you include Apache, you don't care if you are running MacOS, Debian, or Red Hat, you just have your Apache running. And also the dream, I don't know if it's really a dream for all of you, but for me maybe it was to be just in play. I have a module, I use it, I declare some variables somewhere, and then it works. Later there started to come up some collections of modules. There was more, let's say, a structured ecosystem of modules that were worked together. So they were more useful, because you could take the whole collections of modules and then use it once you understand the logic. They were also, generally speaking, based on specific operating systems, the one that the author of the collection used. And there was this kind of coherency internally. I mean, every module needed and worked well together with the others, because they were all glued by the same person and made for the specific task to make a whole infrastructure. They could have, of course, custom types and functions that well worked inside the same collection. And, of course, it was difficult to take a single module from a collection and to use it somewhere else. I think that this is a problem that many of you have had. So the ultimate result was that there was not much the possibility to mix and mesh modules from different collections. I have here a sort of little list of the most known, they will say, collections. I close eyes if I'm missing someone. And the cool thing is that we have here most of the people who have made them. We use David, which is actually the first one who released a Puppet collection of modules, as far as you know. There are the guys from PuppetCamp, from Pathol, maybe Rip, Puppet Manager. Well, I did this stuff. And is there someone from Immersion? No. Ah, it's you. It's the same thing. Yeah.
One of the 5 names.
Okay, whatever. Things happen. I think that the thing that we have here, most of the people who release the public modules can be a good occasion, maybe unique occasion to face some of the challenges we can have in the future to make modules compatible some way and interoperable.
You should do a session on that later.
Pardon?
You should do a session on that later. I'm joking. I'm making happen.
Okay, it's too hard to understand jokes. Anyway, on the wiki there is the complete list. But finally, we have the project. It's a central repository of modules. There is some kind of name-based hierarchy. I mean, you can have the Labo 42 Apache module, you can have the Camp Apache module, and whatever kind of Apache module. They are supposed to be easily usable. The command line makes it very easy to install the module. And there will be some sooner or later embedded in the Puppet tools, so in the dashboard, but maybe also somehow in the Puppet command, as you told us yesterday. There is also a nice thing, which is the automatic metadata management, which is actually something that we talked about for quite a long time, how to make metadata, where the things to place in, and so on. Then, as I think it's the best way, they decided to do that in that way, and that's the right way. Not because possibly is the best one, but because it's the one that comes from the, let's say, authority. And so people have to follow it. So, the thing with the forge is that maybe we can have the chance to change how we make models, because we connect them all together inside the same repository. And that's a nice thing. But beware on the dark side. There can be problems in having all these modules stuffed together in the same place without any kind of order. If we don't try to make modules talk somehow one another with another, making them interoperable, we will find maybe, I think, just another bunch of modules, where whoever places their own modules, there will be the good ones and the bad ones. People will use more the good ones and so on, but still there will be not the possibility of using a module for a person, a module for another person, a module for another person, and try to, let's say, choose the best ones for every kind of need. And I think this is something that we should try to avoid. Nice. So, revelation maybe is a big word. I don't know if some actually of Puppet Labs have told something like, let's put stuff together and see what happens. Maybe they have thought about it. That's a way to do things. I mean, we do it, we try, and then somehow the community, the users, will find their own way. This is a mouse, whatever, through the right way. Many times I hear guys saying, oh, people do with Puppet things in the wrong way. Hey, but nobody said actually what was the good way. So when you have a tool that makes you use things and do things in so many different ways, because it's some kind of language, people start to do things in different ways. And so that could be the way that works, the way that works less, that is more fitting or less fitting. But still, I would never say that's a bad way, that's a good way, unless it doesn't work at all. So, standards. First of all, enforcing standards is something that should come only from the top, not from the bottom. I think that if we need to set standards, these kind of standards should come from Puppet Labs. But there should be also standards that have some need, some reason to exist. Otherwise, they are just, let's say, forcing things in a way that could be done another way. So there should be a reason to have standards. And also, I think that actually it's not so a big thing to have some kind of minimal standards in order to make some things work together nicely and then see what happens. Now, I would like now to, let's say, overview what is the current state of, let's say, modules, standards, best practice, more or less practice, and so on. So these will be things that many of you already know, maybe others don't know, maybe this is useful for the others. Generally speaking, you name a module with the name of an application. So module postfix manages postfix. Module Apache manages HTTP, Apache HTTP server. That's a typical case when the main convention is actually a bit tweaked out. But when we talk about Apache, we know that we mean the HTTP server. And generally speaking, the module name should be lowercase, no spaces, no double columns, and slashes. Simple. On the Puppet site, there is referring to the name site for a module which is dedicated to your own site's customization. So you should never call your module site, also because I don't think there is an application called site. And generally speaking, when you have to use a module, you include a module. So that module, when you use it, should install the package and run the service. This is a sort of also, let's say, not standard, but something that by use became a sort of de facto standards. When you include the subclass postfix disable, you actually install a postfix, but don't disable the service. You don't make it run. This is not really a standard, but let's say so. It's a sort of a second standard. Also, some kind of general usage is when you have a program that can act as a client or a server, you can specify that. So, how do you use modules? You import the module name. So if you import AutoFS, you actually loading and reading module path, AutoFS manifest PFP. This is done actually automatically, so it's not necessary now to import explicitly modules if they are in the right module path, if they have their own name, and if they have the PFP in the module manifest directory. And when you include a class such as AutoFS server, you actually logging module path, AutoFS manifest server. Also, this is automatically done.
When let's go back a second. So on loading Ghent.pp, I noticed there seems to be a difference in habit. So the example for the two stuff seems to put loads of stuff in Ghent.pp, whereas some other people will just do an import star in Ghent.pp and break everything else out into separate ones. Is there a general feeling of which is better to do?
Yes.
Yeah,
you understood the question, so you can say yes.
Oh, yeah. He was asking if all the classes should go in .pp or be broken out into manifest, like server.pp.
You can back out things.
This is what I did when I just noticed the example 42 stuff. Certainly last time I looked at it, put an ass load of stuff in .pp, whereas I just put import star in .pp and break it out. And I wonder whether that's useful.
As usual, there are different approaches and ways to do the same thing. You actually, the only important really thing is to have this. Then, if here you import star.pp and then you use classes that are in .pp files, I suppose that works. That works. The master works. So, talking about already modules and so standards, what actually is the logic of the module. The module path by default is in etc puppet modules and user shared puppet modules, at least the last time I tried. In a module, you place files according to a standard. This is what I call as enforcing standards somehow, because you have to place things in the right places, and in those places things work in the right way. So you have the module name. They started to see around the test directory in the Puppet module Forge. There is the introduction of this directory where it's supposed to be. They are supposed to be manifests that actually use the resources of the module. Tested somehow we will see how actually testing will be done. Then there are files directory where you place static files, templates directory where you place templates. the manifest, the init.pp, which is actually the most, the first manifest which is written, then the library lib directory where you can place providers, types, paths, and so on. Just remember that up to a few versions ago, this was called plugins. So now you see a deprecation notice if you use plugins directly. Sooner or later, they will start stopping work. I don't know why Puppet Labs guys like to change so quickly and fastly things, naming something like that. I mean, maybe there was a reason for sure. Plugins, lib, what?
Plugins was named somewhat arbitrarily, and lib is
The name of the...
what everyone else uses for everything, and so it was more correcting an oversight. I don't think we'll change that again.
Okay, that's a... Sure.
I don't think so.
Then there is the metadata JSON, which actually, if you use the Puppet module forge, is actually automatically generated according to another file, which is not here, which is called meta module, something like that. If you use the Puppet tool of the forge, you will see the file where you have to insert your data, and they are used also in the metadata. And let me make it for having some kind of documentation. So, when you use modules, the nice thing of having wrote this structure is that actually when you can refer to files, you can know where these files are. So when you use static source files, when you refer to server name, it can be also not defined. Modules, which is something new also, this one. Outfs, outrows, you're actually looking for a file which is in the module path, module name, files, outrows. And that's nice. Same thing for the templates. If you are looking for some kind of template, first, maybe this is something that not everybody knows, you look in template dir, outfs, automaster. Template dir is generally invalid or Puppet templates. And then in your modules, so in module path, the name of the module, templates, automaster. This is an interesting thing, because this lets you change the behavior of the module without touching the module. We will get inside this more later. Documentation, good documentation is good for making standards, for building a common practice, and so on. There is the PuppetDoc tool. This is the way, generally speaking, it's intended to be used. And this is a sort of emphasis of suggesting standards. Remember to place no empty lines between the last comment and the class name. I don't know how many of you lost time trying to figure out how to make PuppetDoc work. I did. And it was just a matter of empty lines between the comments and the class name. This is good, I think, for...
It's about the previous slide, so you can continue.
Previous? Well, I'll come back.
Okay. You mentioned how to overwrite the templates, but does it also work for files? As for the configuration files?
As far as I know, no. There is not a default way to override the place of the files.
So how would you manage that then? Because I can imagine that you want to totally change the configuration file without going into the module and updating the file over there.
Well, there are different opinions on how to do things. One way would be to make a class that inherits this class and defines the source parameter in the way you want. So outside of the module, you make your own site class module where you place this class. There are people around here that when you talk about inheriting, they say they look at you as poor Gravel, and maybe they are right, but as usual, I will see this later, this better later. I don't know if there is the right way to do things. So alternatives can work or not work according to your own needs. Okay, I go on. So, some, let's say, guidelines, some suggestions on how to support different operating systems inside the same module. Also, this is not a de facto standard, it's a sort of general usage of, a general way of managing this kind of problems. Minor differences between operating systems, when you have that simple package to install and the service and configure a single file, you just have a few things to change. The name of the service, the name of the package, the name of the part of the configuration file, the name of the user, but a few things. You can manage them with the variables, internal module variables. I use this notation here, which is something I started to use later because I found it interesting. We will get it later on it later. And when you have measure differences between the behavior of an application inside different operating systems, Apache, Monday, and Red Hat, for example, you maybe better include explicitly the subclasses where you manage all the differences. So you may have a general, simple Apache class that maybe just install the package, runs the service, manage the main configuration file, maybe. Or you can choose also to manage this in the subclasses. And then in the subclasses specific for operating system, you do all the stuff that is needed for the operating system. So, I've seen, yes?
I was thinking maybe you can make it even more simple, because now you are stating which operating system people use for installation, and maybe you can hide it, so that if you have a directory structure, and maybe you have a variable saying that this is the install I want to do, so it's known, then you don't have to say it's for Ubuntu or whatever, and then you can say just include Apache, and the module is in the subdirectory.
Yeah, you can. I mean, this is an implementation example. You can also have include Apache and then here place the operating system variable. It's okay. The point is that I think the main point is when you have to use Apache, you include Apache. You don't have to specify, of course, the operating system. That should be something managed inside the module. How you manage it? You can make these cases. You can make an include of Apache, and then here specify operating system, so automatically according to operating system it tries to load the subclass. But I think, generally speaking, that it's a good idea to make the subclasses specific for different operating systems separated from the main class, when the differences are enough to justify that. So we have seen this kind of attempt to refer to a variable. Actually, you define a variable like this in a class like this. This is, I think, a good idea. It's not mine. I've seen it to maybe some Puppet Labs models, but I don't know if it's a Puppet Lab officially suggested way of doing things. But I think it's a nice thing to have a class where you just define the internal variables for your module. In these internal parameters, you can manage all the differences among different operating systems for some kind of variables, such as the service name, package name. Apache is the right example for this. This is a sense because you include this class, and then you just have to refer to the name of the class and then the name of the variable. So, Apache parents package name. Just beware, use this kind of stuff. And well, you should always use, how do we false. Otherwise, that's good. Also, another thing I haven't managed to make it work is to use this variable inside a template. It fucks up. I don't know if it's a problem of mine because I don't quote it in the right way, or it's a problem of Ruby or whatever. So when you have to do this kind of thing, my workaround is to declare inside a module a variable that is the same, which is which value is given to that one. So I make something like Apache underscore package name, for example, is Apple Apache package name. And then I use inside the template Apache package name. I know it's not so elegant, but I'm not perfection. Okay. So, up to now we have seen more or less how generally a module can be structured. But one of the points is how to make modules reusable. Is it a dream? Some people here, I think, will say yes. Is it something that has sense? The same people and other people can say yes. But let's try to do and to see how a module can be structured in a way that could be as much as possible reusable. So, one point is that, okay, you include the module and it works. It emits variables. You can, of course, provide them somewhere, somehow. And, but it should work as is, at least for our standard installations. So, should is modification and customization without the modification of the same module. There are various approaches to this. We will see some of them later, but that should be an issue, point. One of the things that is always difficult to abstract when you write a module is the logic on how it places that kind of configuration files in different machines. I mean, it's a typical, suppose, problem. You have to configure something, but that configuration file is different according to whatever kind of logic your infrastructure may have. So, how do you manage this? I think that a module should not enforce a logic, but it may suggest it. And a reasonable logic that can be overridden, but at least it's a suggestion. Of course, a module can have, should have as many custom types, effects, and providers it needs to make it work and to customize its resources. And of course, if it needs external resources, there should be well documented. Otherwise, it's not easy just to make it reusable and usable in different places. Also should have some kind of defaults for the eventual variables it uses. So, this is another thing that we should talk about. You see there's cloud around there, also with the pandas. It's something like suggesting. This is not something that I say. This is something that we should discuss. How do you manage user variables? I mean, somewhere, you have to provide values inside your configuration files and so on. So maybe you can use an external node tools. How many of you use an external node classifier? How many of you use Foreman and Dashboard? You're almost there. And also some other tools. But that's nice to know.
How many are using LDAP?
4. Nobody does. Okay, so of course, with this kind of, with any kind of external node tool, whatever is its logic, you can provide variables to the node. So you have classes to include and variables to define. Variables can be provided also in other ways. You can specify them at the node level. I followed an approach actually made by Francesco, which is your fault, but it was good old times ago, which is made, let's say, requires a sort of inheritance tree between nodes. So there is some kind of general nodes, some kind of zone nodes, some kind of machine nodes, and according to that tree, you define or redefine variables. I see that working well in my cases. I hear people thinking bad things about that approach. I mean, it's a matter of cases. You can also define variables in a sort of configuration class. So your module includes a class that configures, defines the variables, or that configure what is needed for the node. There is this kind of framework, maybe I don't know how real it is, that variables should be only in facts. I mean, I don't know if I ever understood bad this idea or if actually is something that people do. The point is, it's wonderful to have everything in facts because it comes from the client, and so it's not you don't have problems with the scoping of variables and so on. But I wonder if it has sense to place in facts everything. Also some kind of logic on how to change the variable according to the environment, the kind of service you are managing and so on. So if you have to write effects where there is kind of custom logic and data source management for different variables to the same variable, I don't see the advantage. But anyway, I would make to use only facts to manage variables, maybe not. So you should tell me how you do. But it's not very critic. It's just I want to know how it can work. So you just have facts and no variables defined in every case.
I try to use only facts. And until now,
Right. Of course, as overall, if it works for you, it's okay. That's the point. And also there have been attempts to place and define variables with some kind of an external data source. Even if RAP is not carried now, I'm talking about S2CAP, which is an approach which can work. Works. Still, it has to be embedded in the module. So it somehow forces the behavior of the module. So either you use S2CAP and the module requires it, or you don't. And this is about variables. The other bigger, let's say, point and how you can modify the behavior of the module outside of the module is how to provide configuration files. So that's usually the thing you do. So you can just provide static files using the source statement. You can use templates, content statement. You can use concat or tools like that to build files. This can work for some kind of files, of course, and it's most applicable for typically, for example, a named configuration or something like that. You can also decide to manage the file contents with the August type, or use some kind of other inline modification tool, something like a replace line or whatever other kind of custom function to modify single lines inside the file. These are all alternatives. You can't decide to use both of them for the same, or one for the same file. And I think that you should use the right weighted according to the kind of file you are managing. So also this is not something that it can be maybe enforced in a module, because well, maybe it should be suggested but not enforced. That's the point. Customizing modules. remember there is the cloud over there, so we should discuss this. This is another point which is worth considering. When we take a module from a public repository, we want to use it as is without touching it and making all our changes outside of the module, or we just take the module, modify it, and use it for our own case. In both the situations, there are pros and cons. And I have a question, one more question for you. How many of you have do use modules publicly released on the internet by different people? You do that. So how many of you have used public modules? Okay, so not so many people we just make modules from ourselves. And how many of you use these modules as is, without touching them, besides customization of a few variables and stuff like that? So, the point is, should we take the module from the forge, leave it as is, so it can be synchronized with the upstream source, make all our changes, if any changes have to be done, and changes can be also the way files are managed, the way some behavior of the module is done, is managed, and so on. Or should we just take the module, cut and paste, modify it, and use it, customizing internally the module? Both approaches have some considerations to be done. For example, it's easier to customize a module from inside. You don't have to make site modules different with your own way to manage the module content. For example, inheriting or including some classes. But at the same time, if you want to reuse the module, you should not touch it. Or possibly, maybe you touch it, you modify it, you move it in another context, another environment, another project, and just you know where to modify it again. But still you are losing some kind of portability. So these are issues that soon, I don't know what's the right way. I don't know if there is a right way. Maybe it's a dream to have really totally portable, reusable modules. Maybe not, but dreams are maybe we become reality somehow, sometimes. Okay, so you know, people say don't write too many things in slides because people will read them instead of listening to you. So don't care about what they said. That's the way. So I'm talking about, let's say, standards, and I would like to discuss here some kind of, let's say, proposals I would like to do about ways to make modules a bit more operable than today. So this is kind of, let's say, a proposal from example 42. Example 42 is a site where there is a public collection of modules. Maybe it's more an hobby than a work in this moment. And well, just to be brief, the modules there are not really standardized. There are old modules, good modules, newer modules. There are modules that work well, modules that work bad, modules that are not modules, and so on. Because actually I'm more interested in trying to find the right approach, the right way, and I still haven't found it, to make a module. So I'm before, let's say, readapting and refactoring all the modules I have in a standard way, I would like to decide what is this standard. And I hope maybe to have some answer here, but it will be difficult, I suppose. And I hope, anyway, that it can be useful for learning and also for customization, or at least for some kind of modules. And well, they are not production ready for some kind of module. This can be said. For others, they are just ready and usable. There is an effort to make them multi-operating system aware, and actually many of them have support for Debian, Red Hat, and then with time some of them already SUSE and FreeBSD and so on. The hope is it's also a sort of attempt to see how things can be done and how they can work with different operating systems. And some of them have good support. I try not to enforce configuration files inside the modus. I mean, the modus by itself does almost nothing. You have to decide how to manage the configuration files, but also this is a design decision that can be changed. So they are made to be adapted. And also, I am a system administrator mostly, and so I have written them with a system evaluation approach. And when I think about this, I think about, okay, you have to use Puppet in your infrastructure, you have to produce it. So you have already files there doing your stuff. And you shouldn't, according to me, need to learn how the module manages to build your files. You just should place your files inside the modules and then make them work in some way, as templates, as static files, without too much, let's say, over engineering about how to build things. But this is a personal approach. So, the point is, can we try to make our sets of modules somehow more interoperable, more easy to make use modules? I would like so much to use modules by others, but in a way or another, it's difficult for me to do that. What are the main points we can consider? Well, most of the times there are custom functions used inside the modules. That's not a big issue actually. If you document them, you can just say, okay, this module requires these other modules. Generally speaking, most of the times they are maybe some kind of functions that are generally made based in a common module where you put stuff together used by different modules. Also sometimes, and this is a point worth considering, you need a module that needs resources by other modules. Apache and sysctl is a typical cases. In your module, Squirrel Mail, for example, you have the need to place your apache.com file somewhere. And so you need a resource provided by another module. It would be nice to have a common way to refer to define places a .com file somewhere for Apache, whatever the Apache module you are using. In this sense, SSTL, for example. Also, one other thing is that most of the times in many collections there is a, let's say, custom logic to manage backup and monitoring. So, for example, you have in your module a wonderful set of modules with a wonderful set of integrating monitoring, for example, with Mooning, that was wonderful. Inside that collection, outside of that, you have to make tweaks in order to make the module work. And also, a necessity can be, okay, you have a module, you need not to have another module, and so it would be nice to have a minimal standard for this. So, I'm suggesting something like few naming conventions. This is something that we have to discuss, of course. I don't care about the same names. I care about the logic, the point. I mean, it's not important if you call Samba absent a default for naming, for managing the removal of an application with a module. So we have already something like Samba disable the service. Sometimes you need, because people have asked for that, to just remove it. Okay, I don't want anymore to have Samba on this server. How do you do it? It's not difficult to find an agreement on saying, we call it Samba no, Samba absent, destroy Samba, whatever. You find a name. If every module around, say, uses that way to remove the module, you are sure that if you use this convention, you are removing the application. So this is not a big thing to do, and I think the advantage is not so great, but it can help in some cases. Also, a case when it can be useful to define a way to name a subclass is something like a way to say, I don't want this service to run at good time, but I don't want also to check it if it's not running. Typical cases where you have a cluster managing the service. You don't start that service at a good time because the clusters manage it, but you don't want your Samba disable to stop the service when it runs Puppet. So a point would be to find a word, whatever word to say to manage this kind of behavior. Then there is some kind of more, let's say, ambitious naming about how we manage resources to monitor and to backup, mostly. There could be also other examples. A way standard to say what do we want to backup in a module, what do we want to monitor in a module. Besides the implementations, I mean, one thing is the naming convention, one thing is the specific implementation. We can have different implementation of the monitoring stuff, but it would be nice to say in my module, I want to, we will see it maybe later, not maybe for sure later. I want to monitor this stuff for this module, whatever the kind of tool I use for mine. Also, it would be nice to have some kind of similar thing to manage perhaps what I want to backup, because a module provides data somewhere, that the directory where the data is stored should be backuped, but I should not be forced on the use of a specific backup solution. Another nice thing would be to have a naming convention how to make inline modifications. I know inline modification files are not always the best thing to do. Maybe they are probably the worst thing to do, but in some cases they are needed. So if I know that with some kind of naming, Samba settings, which is used maybe by someone here, Samba conf, whatever, I know that I change the main configuration alignment inside the main configuration file, application. I can use this from other modules. Of course, we have to manage this, we have seen before. Either you use manage modules from files, with upgrades, with inline modification. You can't use the same things, different things to manage the same, different approaches to manage the same file. But still, it's something that can be useful to have. So, the point is, it would be nice to find some kind of agreement on this. I don't know if it's possible, but it would be nice. Very useful. Talking about monitor, for example, just to be more practical, what I mean, I would like in my model to define what I want to monitor, not how. I don't care if I want to monitor Apache with mergers, with mooning, with whatever. I just should care about the path monitoring, the process to monitor, or something like that. Don't care about also this naming convention.
Are there cases where you would want to install Samba but not, or install Postfix but not monitor it? What's the reason for breaking the things you want to monitor out into a separate class rather than putting them in the main Postfix class?
Well, in a separate class because it's easier to take it separated. So in the main class, I mean, you can also decide not to monitor anything. So you don't include this class.
But why would you do that?
or you have an existing monitoring solution, it's not this, but you still want to use the postfix automation, it's probably, I imagine, most common case.
I only put in monitoring of XM, also in the config of XM. So many machines I just put default config down so they can just say mail. They don't receive mail. The only one I actually configure it, plug in the color configure is or.
It just seems weird to have a separate class. There's some decisions you're making that results in you caring about that service, and thus you should automatically monitor. Anyway, we can talk about that in the session later.
Wait a moment.
I will argue with this.
I use a different class because it's something that I started to use and I didn't know if anybody else cared, so I wanted to keep it.
There's also
it's
good to
it's
do
cool,
separate
but
class, so you can do a required class as well as
I think that the point is not the implementation, is the concept. If something like this is embedded in Puppet code, it's much better, of course. If we could manage with Puppet language, okay, these resources monitored in this way, and then we have somewhere else the logic and the glue to make that work, whatever. I mean, my implementations, what you see here, is something made by a Puppet user with limited Ruby knowledge. So it's made with some an approach can work, but maybe it's not the approach that many people here would follow. And it's not, I'm not saying it's the approach to follow. I say that maybe we should find some kind of way to do this kind of stuff. So it's not important. The naming convention, at least here, in this case, for this example, it's not important. The fact that it is a different class, it's important that in a module I should define what I want to monitor and just care about that. Ports, process names, oops. Well, for me also just the name of the plugin, also if when naming plugins maybe you have to be careful, but anyway, this kind of stuff. The same logic could be done for the backup logic. I know Apache stores data, public files somewhere. I decide to backup them. Don't consider the syntax here, the namings here, the examples. But the point would be nice to say, okay, with this module, I have these directories, I want to backup them, I don't care what tool I use to backup them. And then people can use that module wherever they want and integrate it easily into their own backup logic. So of course also here there is naming convention needs, but most of all, and before of that, there is some kind of implementation convention to be decided somehow. So the best thing to be something that comes from the code, from inside. Otherwise that's this kind of wrapping around stuff. So, and this concept could be more extended in different ways, more or less useful work, but just to make examples, imagine if I would automate the management of firewalls with a Puppet according to this, but it can be done. I mean, you can decide, okay, I want this class to have this, some class should have port 445 open, inbound, or maybe needs to call to communicate with some other outbound ports and so on. And so manage it with local IP tables or with some other on the commands on the firewall and so on. Implementation here is a bit more difficult, but can be an example. Something like similar would be also to decide, okay, I want to audit, even if it maybe it's not the right thing to do with Puppet, to some kind of one-shot decision to audit stuff and then check, monitor how it works, details, evaluate, and so on. But anyway, these are examples of resources that can be extended somehow and defined inside the module in a general way. thing I think would be nice would be a convention for managing inline modifications. We know it's not a nice thing to do, but sometimes it needs. I found moments when I had to change, for example, a PHP code to declare variables for my SQL connection, and I don't want that kind of piece of program to be managed entirely by Puppet, because when it updates, I should take from the source the configuration file and place it inside my own Puppet files and so on. So I just want in that file to make single inline modifications. Only these are the cases where it's worth to make inline modifications, and the only cases. But it would be nice to have some kind of method to define with a unique naming convention, whatever this is, a way to change the configuration file. My approach has been actually to create a sort of wrapper, which is this config, which defines the file to change, parameter and variable, what I call engine, and sort of, since I've seen that actually no, for different cases, different implementation of replacer in the lines are working or not, according to the symbols you find, the code, and so on. So, consider this something like a provider in Puppet code. Maybe it would be better to have this kind of custom type written in Ruby and then ready to the provider to manage files, inline modification set files, whatever. This implementation is something like this. So I know that this is something that many of people here will consider totally rubbish, but it works. You have a config defined, you can pass it variables. According to different genes, different variables can be needed. And what I call engines is actually the use of different methods I've seen around, or I try to develop to make inline modifications. So you have the Aujas engine, which actually uses Aujas to modify the file. What I called file to Aujas, which actually creates a file and then runs Aujas on it. I did it because I needed it to run Aujas on files that were outside the scope of Aujas. For example, arbitrary files and arbitrary directories. But in both, this would be possible to use Aujas in whatever kind of file, whatever path that you need. Line is something that maybe is done by Ghent or someone else, some custom custom type to modify lines inside a file, and this is the approach to use the engine. What is nice and what I found actually useful is that if I don't like or it doesn't work well, this attempt to modify, manage the inline modification of a file with an engine, I change the engine and try. So it's some kind of interchanging modular approach. I'm sorry.
It's interesting, so I'll let you go on.
No, it's just okay, another approach finally, and I'm off. I'm trying to consider the use of Puppet also who actually don't need it. People who, with a few servers to manage, a few no real need to use Puppet, but still I think that it can be useful. And I tried it and it works, to make some kind of baselines, which is actually just what you generally do when you define general configurations for a machine, with maybe optimizations and hardening basic hardening of the system. Also what I call toasters. So, a set of modules that make up an appliance, not a toaster line. I have an example here for a working mail scanner toaster. Mail scanner is a sort of middle for managing mail filtering. And this whole stuff actually builds easily. You just have to run Puppet client side without a server on a machine. Installs mail scanner, which is quite a complex thing to glue all together, the things together, because there are different configuration files to manage with line modifications. There is postfix and with MySQL support and so on. So it has been quite a complex approach, implementation, because it needed different things. So it was also a good test to see some things working in the approach. And that can be useful also to make people who don't care about Puppet because they don't know how to use it, they don't need it, not only use Puppet. You run Puppet, you download the code, you run Puppet client side, you remove Puppet, and you keep on doing your stuff by hand. It can be an approach, you know, a sort of appliance builder engine. Then, of course, once you know power and so on, you will never stop, but it can be a way. So, that's the point where, oh, we have not more time, sorry. I'm afraid of this part because I'm not sure to understand what you will ask. And actually, I'm not sure if you understood what I told you. But anyway, if you have questions to ask, I'm here for that.
There is going to be an open spaces session. There really should be, if there isn't one, and it should probably be a very big room, like in here.
The first block today.
Okay, so I mean, maybe because we're running a little over, I have a feeling that if we took questions, I have a feeling if we took questions, we would utilize all of your time and we wouldn't get to hear Jeff actually do his speech.
Take a break.
Normally I would say take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break for most part turns into about a 20-minute break.
5-minute break and we start relax.
So,
We could do that, yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say that the graphics for these slides were done by a good friend of mine, which is called Tatlin. He is a wonderful graphician. And Tatlin.net is inside.
A very nice picture.